Hello. Welcome to our first annual Government Women in Technology Summit. This coming Monday is International Women's Day, so this is the perfect time to host our first annual summit. I'm Devin Penn, your Master of Ceremony, and I am excited to introduce to you all the esteemed invited speakers and panelists we have today. Before we begin, I want to mention some housekeeping rules. This summit is for those who work for the state of Indiana and invited speakers only. We kindly ask you to leave if you are not. We will be recording this summit and will distribute it to the appropriate channels after the event. Please do not record or take screenshots of any parts of this event. We will also have a short survey for you to take at the end of the meeting too. Now, without further ado, let's get started. It is my honor to welcome State CIO Tracy Barnes, who will deliver a welcome message to all of our members.
Hello, and welcome everyone to the Indiana Government Women in Technology First Annual Summit. I am Tracy Barnes, Chief Information Officer for the state of Indiana, and I am truly honored to be here to kick off this event. Thank you to Anushree Bagh and the other board of directors for inviting me to speak today. I had the privilege of speaking at your October 2020 meeting, and I'm very excited to see how much your membership has grown already in just a few months. Though I know this is a group effort, I do want to single out and praise Anu for being a force behind the creation and growth of this group of professional women. It started with a single idea from Anu, along with a couple people from IoT, and now the group spans across the state. Today, there are over 100 members across 24 state agencies. Now that is impressive. Thank you, Anu, for your perseverance in expanding across a variety of state agencies and continuing to empower, elevate, and motivate all of these members with your leadership. It is also exciting to see that GWIT is paving the way on a much bigger stage as well, including a new Women in Technology group at the national level in coordination with my peers at the National Association of State Chief Information Officers, NASCIO. So I'm excited to see where that leads as well. Once again, Indiana is leading the way and being a trailblazer for change, much needed change. And now I have the distinct honor to introduce another trailblazing woman that I have had the honor to work with and privilege to work for over the last 6 years. Please welcome our Lieutenant Governor, Suzanne Kraft, to deliver the keynote address for today's summit.
Hello, fellow Hoosiers and state employees. Thank you for the invitation to speak to you all today and as you participate in your annual summit. It's one of my life's greatest honors to serve as the 52nd Lieutenant Governor of Indiana and a partner to our Governor, Eric Holcomb. And as we virtually gather today, the reality of dynamic change has never been more evident or more comprehensive than right now. Hoosiers have embraced this change and have harnessed the pioneering spirit that is in the very DNA of our state. And this focus on real progress and prosperity has brought about an era of opportunity for Hoosier families and businesses that is honestly unprecedented. This historic growth was not achieved by good fortune and will not be maintained without purpose and perseverance. Changes in finance, technology, and our workforce cannot be ignored. But as we change, we must continue to ensure fairness and accessibility for all who seek to participate in our state's economy. And we must be vigilant as we work to provide the tools that will help each and every individual compete in this ever-changing economy. As we know, time is a precious commodity and each day is a gift. And with that in mind, I challenge each of us not to waste a moment as we work to build a better Indiana. Your vision to establish the Government Women in Technology is building a better Indiana. In the past year, you've grown to more than 100 members, and you've partnered with allies to help spread the word and encourage more women to seek careers in technology. And your programming is gaining attention from your peers in other states. So thank you to the other women joining the summit to learn more about women leaders in Indiana. And it's amazing what women can achieve, but especially here in Indiana. Governor Holcomb understands that having women intimately involved in the leadership of this state is crucial. And with more women at the table, we have more robust, inclusive conversations about issues that matter not only to women, but to families and to all Americans. We must continue to elect and push for leaders that understand the important role women play in the economy. And working together, we can push Indiana to greater heights than ever before. As Lieutenant Governor last year, I chaired the Women's Suffrage Centennial Commission in Indiana because 2020 was the 100th anniversary of women's right to vote. The commission's purpose was to plan and develop activities celebrating the suffrage movement, but also to engage Hoosiers across our state and create a legacy elevating the contributions of women and men to the suffrage movement for future generations to enjoy. But we must never forget it was men who voted to give women the right to vote. And in the history of our nation, women are relative newcomers among state elected and appointed offices. And although women make up about 51% of the population, we currently only make up 29% of all state legislators nationwide. And in Indiana, we make up only 25% of the Indiana General Assembly. But the good news, 5 of the 7 statewide elected officials in Indiana are women. And our Supreme Court Justice, Loretta Rush, is the first female Supreme Court Chief Justice in our history. Today, women are making history in the workforce with more and more of us training on C-level positions. But with so few women working in technology, it is an industry that is a little behind. Groups like the one you have joined is working to change all that, not just by lifting up each other as professional women, but by looking to inspire that next generation. It is crucial that young girls given the same opportunities to get involved in STEM classes and keep them interested in these rewarding subjects throughout their whole education. It is so inspiring to know you already are working with students at Indianapolis schools and colleges, and you're looking for more opportunities to support and mentor Hoosier girls interested in a career in technology. And this will get them ready for all of the 21st century technology we're working on now, and that will be invented in the years to come. Of course, one big piece of technology already impacting us is broadband. And the pandemic shined a light on the need for more and more broadband access. Broadband might have once been considered a luxury, but it is now a necessity for Hoosiers who want or need quality internet service to work, learn, and receive health care from home. Broadband is the enabling infrastructure for Indiana's innovation economy. And so far, we have allocated $79 million to help connect nearly 22,000 Hoosier households and businesses. Our administration is requesting an additional $100 million for our next level broadband program to help continue our progress to connect all Hoosiers. Access to affordable, high-speed internet impacts workforce, healthcare, economic development, education, and quality of life. And another goal of the administration this legislative session is to raise the minimum speed to at least the federal standard, which would allow more Hoosiers to access high-speed internet. Broadband expansion is also an issue our federal partners are trying to address. In December of 2020, the FCC awarded more than $169 million to connect nearly 153,000 Hoosiers throughout Indiana over the next 6 years. This is such an important aspect of Indiana's future success and will continue to be an important part of our administration for the next 4 years. It is inspiring to know that your group is also starting to work with adult Hoosier women who want to change careers into technology fields. And over the coming years, we look forward to working with you to grow Indiana, especially when it comes to Hoosier technology. And with women like you leading the way, we can make our state an even better place to live, work, play, study, and stay. In his final Oval Office address, President Reagan fondly described the great accomplishments of the 1980s and remarked, "My friends, we did it. We weren't just making time, we made a difference." And it is my sincere hope that those words may ring true to each of us. Let us commit ourselves to the idea that we can and will make a difference if we act with purpose and conviction. Let us not look back on our days with regret, but with the knowledge that we continued a legacy of leadership that will make Hoosiers more proud and more prosperous than ever before. In closing, I want to thank each of you for the great honor of serving you all as your Lieutenant Governor. And Governor Holcomb and I are grateful for all that you do. I want to remind you that what is truly great about Indiana are her women. Each of you here today, those of you in the government Women in Technology, Hoosier women all across our great state. And I look forward to seeing the Government Women in Technology group grow in its second year and many years to come. God bless you, God bless Indiana, and God bless our women. Thank you.
Next up, Lauren Peterson, VP of Stakeholder Engagement for TechPoint, is our next speaker. Proudly headquartered in Indianapolis, TechPoint is the growth accelerator for Indiana's tech ecosystem and brings together Indiana's tech companies, philanthropies, government, universities, and talent to create opportunities throughout the state of Indiana. GWIT members may remember that Lauren spoke to us last year, and we're thrilled to have her join us today. If you have any questions during the live presentations, please ask them in the Q&A section, and we'll answer them after each presenter gets done. Lauren, you're on.
Wonderful. Thank you, Devin. Can you see my screen okay and see me okay? Awesome. Well, good morning, everyone. What a delight it is to be with you all this morning. As Devin mentioned, my name is Lauren Peterson, and I am the Vice President of Stakeholder Engagement at TechPoint. And TechPoint is Indiana's nonprofit industry-led growth initiative, really focused on growing Indiana's tech ecosystem. And like you, I said yes to my dream job. That was about 5 years ago when I committed to TechPoint and was truly compelled to really make a place impact in our state, which is why I'm so excited to speak with each of you this morning. A room full of technology leaders that I am certain have an interest in how to make this place that we all call home an awesome place not only to live and work, but to also play and really make an impact. So in the next few minutes that we have together, my aim really is to talk about how I see Indianapolis, which is a city made for doers and change makers. And I want to share 3 tips that I hope will help you go from big idea to big impact fast. And before I jump in, I have to extend a heartfelt thank you to A New Bag for inviting me to join you all this morning at the Government Women in Technology Conference. And Anu, I'm going to brag on you because I'm not sure how many of your colleagues know that you are up for one of TechPoint's coveted Mira Awards for Community Champion of the Year. So if you did not know that yet, please extend a congratulations to A New Bag for this wonderful accomplishment. And to help set the stage, Anu shared with me a bit more about the work of GWIT and how it's grown over the past few years. And I want to reiterate something that I feel really compelled by, and that's you are all a part of something really special as a member or an advocate or even attending this GWIT conference this morning. And for a couple of reasons. I see GWIT really as embracing a culture in state government, and it's providing a group for women like you across multiple points in your careers. And it's inspiring you to really make a difference, not just during your 9 to 5, but outside of those work hours. And I love that it's at its core focusing on breaking that stigma that women in tech are not only brilliant and progressive, but innovative and change makers in community. And so with that, I want to jump right in.
Lauren, I think you have muted yourself.
Inadvertently. Okay, I'll jump back in here. I am so sorry. Thank you for mentioning that, Stephanie. Okay, 3 ways here I want to encourage you to intentionally and strategically start embracing how you can become a doer and change maker for our state. First, create a mantra map and keep refining it. Secondly, don't simply network, build community. And thirdly, develop your personal brand, then broadcast it. So first here, create a mantra map and keep refining it. I see a couple of your faces, so I'm going to ask, give me a reaction on Microsoft Teams, raise your hand. When I ask, how many of you have been mentored by someone? I have. How many of you are in a position where you're mentoring others right now? I'm sure many of you too. That's so awesome to see and hear. I was very fortunate to have a dear mentor in my life by the name of Tamara Zahn, and she was the founding president of Downtown Indy Inc., who unfortunately passed away all too soon. Constantly encouraged me to seek balance and go deeper in my relationships. I hear her in my mind right now saying, Lauren, crystallize that vision, and ensuring that when I approach roles, whether it's work or outside the 9 to 5, that I'm staying consistent with my values and aligned to my purpose. So you might be asking, oh, so how does one go about making sure they're aligned to values and purpose? Make sure that what you're saying yes to is in line with what I call your mantra map. And in going about doing so, I created an exercise that includes answering these questions. What gives you joy and energy? What depletes that joy and energy? When do you feel most alive? One of my favorite pieces of advice that Tamara offered during this extensive journey, she told me, and I'm going to quote her, observe other strong, confident, and authentic female voices to help shape your own leadership style and expertise, especially those women who made their way of doing things and also excelled in a man's world. I hope that sits in and resonates with many of you. So when I went through this practice and I was identifying what are my North Stars in this mantra map that's going to help me answer that question, the North Stars for me are women and girls, placemaking, and solving for poverty. And so when I am asked to serve on boards or volunteer or anything in between, if it doesn't fit within one of those 3 North Stars, then I politely decline the opportunity. And so ultimately at the end of this, don't be afraid to keep refining and changing your mantra map as your world evolves too, because it's okay that your world's going to change and so will your priorities. So as we enter this professional world, and even before that, we are instilled that networking is the most important thing for us to do. But when we put ourselves out there and make connections to grow our network and advance our careers, sometimes it's overwhelming and sometimes we might go about it in uncertain ways. So networking isn't a bad thing in itself, and it's even helped me, and I'm sure many of you, land your own dream job. However, when we approach networking with a solely what's in it for me mentality, it becomes really less about value add and more about selling yourself, which is why I'm hoping this topic right now of building community and not just simply networking will really resonate with you. So how does one go about intentionally building community? First, it's all about self-awareness. Identify what's important to you. Again, what do you do that gives you the most energy? When do you feel alive? Keep that mantra map at your core. For instance, my personal philosophy is be everywhere, know everyone, and that extends to my personal philanthropic approach too, is that everyone everywhere matters. And with that, you've got to do a mindset shift. Focus on really making connections that aren't one way, but that are mutually beneficial and going to add value to every party involved. Thirdly here, this is important to our tech enthusiasts in this group. Don't mistake technology for community. People often mistake a connector, and oftentimes I know that it's hard for us, for those vanity metrics of likes and shares and comments on social media, to lead us to believe that we might be building something when we actually haven't. It's very superfluous and really not intentional. So ensuring that technology should be used to amplify your community, but don't mistake it with being community itself. Next, be a super connector. So when you think about all of those people that are in your network that are helping to connect you, there are probably a disproportionate number of people that have introduced you to the most of your network. Those are your super connectors. So I would encourage you, seek those people out, get coffee with them, meet with them, build your network again on that value exchange, and allow your super connectors to help open those doors for you. And then lastly here, this is an adage that you're probably familiar with. Your network is your net worth. If you want to be a good networker, never ask, how can you help me or others help me? Always lean into, how can I help others? How can I drive value? It's really about building those long-lasting personal relationships in life where everyone gets value and everyone will win. Next, develop your personal brand, then broadcast it to the world. Why is personal brand so important? Because whether or not you think you have one, you are always cultivating it, whether you recognize it or not. So how can someone like you leverage your unique background and transferable skills to build and it comes back to that mantra map. People love passion and they're drawn to it because they want to know what's exciting and what gives people hope and shape. Show the world what you're all about. Holy smokes. If you love blogging and cooking, writing, or painting, showcase that to the world. People care about what you care about and they want to know what gives you that energy. So I would always encourage provide that credibility to what drives you and moves you forward, and you will earn that credibility of the crowd, which is ultimately people listening to what you say and want that social proof of how cool you are. So show the world, tell the world what you're all about, post it across social media. And then lastly here, be there and show up and get involved. When you think about those in your community that are doing incredible work, they are showing up at places where people don't necessarily show them or expect them to show up. And that's what fuels them. And so even if being in person right now is not at your comfort level, engage with people online. Have forums and discussions on LinkedIn. Give people your feedback. Be the person that people want to be connected to and heard from. And then lastly here, as I conclude, I'm truly a firm believer that this city has given us such a special gift. And if we do our jobs well, then we are going to give it right back. And so my challenge here, I believe you each have the capability of being a doer and being a change maker. So it's with this challenge I'm going to leave you with this morning. Harness that passion and leadership for making a community that we all want to love and work for and be proud of. So I hope that that resonates with you this morning on Friday as a part of this Government Women in Technology Conference. And I thank you for your time. So I will pause there. Devin, I might be right up at my 10-minute mark, but I would love to see if there are any questions that are in the chat right now.
Yes, thank you, Lauren. That was awesome. Are there any questions for Lauren, everyone? I don't see anything right now. I have Vanessa saying this is a great idea. Love it.
Thanks, Vanessa.
Anybody else? All right, let's see, something else come in. From Megan, how do you share your brand?
Great question. So funny enough, as a self-proclaimed millennial, I never thought that LinkedIn would be my #1 social media tool, but it really has become just that. So LinkedIn has actually become my favorite social media platform to promote not only what I love about my dream job here at TechPoint and attracting great talent to the States and making this a vibrant community, but I also post on there my hobbies. I love to watercolor paint, so I post the paintings that I have on there. One of my new hobbies I'm exploring is golf as well, so I showcase both what I'm proud of and good at and also my vulnerabilities and what I'm learning too. So to me, the extension of my brand is not only who I am during the workday, but also what gives me that joy and energy outside the workplace. And it's my hobbies, it's supporting other leaders that I follow, and LinkedIn has become a really powerful platform to connect and showcase that brand. So that would be one encouragement I would have for you.
Lauren, I actually have another question for you.
I welcome it.
Do we have a mentor network in Indiana?
That is a great question. I will put in the chat, Devin, a link to Indie Women in Tech's Mentor Network. They do a phenomenal job of connecting female tech leaders to others that are aspiring women that are looking to get into STEM fields. So they have a great platform of being able to connect. And actually the platform that they're using is a local company owned by a woman named Allison Martin called Engage Mentoring. So I'll put links to both Engage Mentoring and then also to Indie Women in Tech's Mentor Network in the chat right after this.
Fantastic, thank you. Are there any more questions for Lauren? Seeing none, thank you. Oh, wait, I think I have one more.
Okay.
As we help others to build their brands, do you have any tips or resources to craft a personal mantra and mantra map?
Oh, good question. For me, it was spending time, and I know this is very personal. I am very and my mentees. And so the short answer there was listening and learning from others. And one encouragement I have a placeholder on my calendar for 10 to 10:30 every Monday morning, where I have carved out mentor and mentee outreach. And that's my intentional effort to schedule time both virtually and in person with those people that are helping to mold me into a person that cares dearly about my community, and then also paying that forward with the individuals that I'm mentioning. So schedule time and be intentional about meeting with those that inspire you. Listen to the feedback and listen to where you're being called, and continuing to ask yourself those questions of what gives you joy, what gives you energy, what are you compelled by, and what are those buckets that you're not necessarily filling during the 9 to 5 that you can start to engage otherwise more broadly in your community. That's a very long-ended answer, but I hope that that helps give shape to how you might create your own mantra map.
Awesome. Thank you, Lauren, for your time.
Yeah, good to be with you all this morning. Thanks for having me, Devin.
Yes, thank you. Bye-bye. All right, everyone. Next up is Terry Takai, Executive Director of the Center for Digital Government. The Center for Digital Government is a national research and advisory institute on information technology policies and best practices in state and local government. Through its diverse and dynamic programs and services, the center provides public and private sector leaders with decision support, knowledge, and opportunities to help them effectively incorporate new technologies in the 21st century. We're excited to hear about your experiences, Terry, and welcome to our summit.
Well, thank you, Devin. It's really an honor and privilege to be here. And it's just such a great opportunity to really be a part of this event. And Lauren, so much appreciated your comments, and those are really great. It's really great advice for everyone here. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to build on what Lauren was talking about, right? I mean, clearly, my experience, just for everybody's background, really goes from not only being in the private sector and being in the automotive industry, but also clearly my roles in government, state government and federal government. So let me give you 5 tips that I'm going to add to the comments that Lauren provided, and then we'll open it up and have a little bit of time for questions. So the first one is, it's really important to feel that you are in control of your career and the moves that you make. I think that very often we wait for things to happen to us, and we don't necessarily think about the importance of us thinking ahead into what we want to do next, and then being a part of making that happen. So that's number one. The second point I would make is that risk is inevitable in growth. So don't be concerned if something happens and it doesn't go your way. One of the things that I always love to say is that I have learned more from my mistakes probably than I have learned from the things that I have done right. And as I love to say, fortunately for me, I probably made a lot of mistakes. And so those have always been a great learning experience. The third one, and I want to add this on to Lauren's points about building a network and really thinking about community, but it's also important to think and realize that all your relationships make a difference. You're going to have relationships that, you know, are a part of your overall conversations. You're going to build your communities, but every relationship that you have is really a potential relationship that's going to help you move into what your next role could potentially be. And so take advantage of that. You know, sometimes you don't know who's going to actually help you and who's actually going to be someone that's going to support you going forward. The next point I would make is don't wait until you're ready. You know, one of the things that we all think about is, well, I'm not sure if I'm going to move or think about that position. I don't know whether I'm ready for that position. You know, everything that you have done has really made you ready for those positions. And so don't think about what you don't have to be ready for a position, but rather think about what is it that you do have that are the right skills for you to be able to move forward. The next point I would make is you have to communicate your intentions. You do have to speak up. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to say, I want this job, but what you do want to say is, I want the opportunity to compete. I want the opportunity to be considered for positions or for different kinds of roles. So I think it's really important to, you know, realize that sometimes you have to be persistent. Sometimes you have to be patient. It isn't necessarily the first time you speak up, but you really do have to let people know, because they aren't necessarily going to know what it is that you're interested in. So those are the 5 points, you know, that I feel have been really important and have helped me. And, you know, the last one that I will finish with is that it's really all about you owning your own career. Sometimes that may mean that you have to think about positions outside your current organization. You know, it's always helpful to look at other positions, not necessarily because you're going to take them, but because it helps you think about what do you like about what you do today, but what might you like about something that you're going to do outside of that. And I found sometimes that when I've looked at positions outside of my current organization, it's actually helped me better understand why I like what I'm doing and why I might want to continue to pursue that. And I think I'll finish with, just to add on to something that I think Lauren was alluding to. You know, you can change the way that you're perceived. You know, Lauren talked about your brand. And as you think about your brand, we always think, well, I'm kind of me, and I'm not sure that I can change. And actually, there are things that you can change by practicing. Things like speaking up. Things like making sure that you know, are presented in the way you want to. But we all do that differently. You know, you have to be true to yourself and who you are. Some of us are introverts, and we think about the way that we present ourselves differently. Some of us are extroverts. There's no one perfect way. So you have to think about what fits for your style. But as Lauren says, you have to keep practicing, you have to think about that brand, and you have to present yourself in the way that you want others to see you. So with that, I hope that was helpful. And I'm open, you know, love to spend a few minutes being able to take some questions. So Devin, do I turn it over to you, and you're the one doing the questions? All right,
yes.
Great.
Thank you so much, Terry. We do have a question. The question is, how do we adjust our career approach now that so many of us are working remotely?
Well, I think that several things are happening now. One is that we have to be more willing to communicate and be proactive about communicating. And that's two things. One is, as Lauren said, you have to reach out to build your network because there isn't that same kind of ability to get together face to face. So it may mean that you're going to call someone or you're going to reach out and say, let's get on a Zoom call. Let's get 3 of us on a Zoom call. So think about that as being proactive. The second thing is that even in these settings, you have to be willing to speak up and communicate. You know, I lead a women's group that's looking, a lot of women that are thinking about kind of, you know, where do I go next in my career? Not early on, but sort of in that middle management space, and what do I do? And it's surprising. I'll get them all on a Zoom call and they don't want to speak up. And so I have to go around and call on them. So think about that. Even in this kind of a setting, it's actually even more important to say, hey, I'm going to be one of the first ones to speak up. I've got something that's important to say, and I'm going to convey it. So it's a little bit of that. This setting requires a little bit more of a larger than life thinking. And I think if we're hesitant to speak up, this setting makes it actually almost worse. And think about that thirdly, if you're in a position of interviewing for a different position, but doing it on Zoom, you have to be animated. You have to be a little bit more than what you could normally convey in an in-person setting.
That is right. Are there any other questions for Terry before we let her go? All right. Seeing none, Terry, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Well, let me just close, Devin, by saying, first of all, thank you to everyone that is on this call. You know, I was fortunate to actually take a public service role later in my career, and having been in industry and been able to move to government. That move to public service was something that was enormously important. I consider it to be a gift that I have had that opportunity. All of you have chosen this as a career. So I just want to say thank you and let you know how much I appreciate everything that everyone does. And if there's anything again that I can do to help support this group, would absolutely love to do that.
All right. Well, thank you, Terry.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
Bye. All right. Next up, we are moving on to our first panel of the day. It is a discussion on leadership during unprecedented times. Terry Stigdon, Director of DCS, Dr. Jennifer Sullivan, Secretary for FSSA, and Dr. Christina Box, Commissioner of the Department of Health, 3 of the highest ranking women leaders in state government in Indiana, give us their insights. Because of restrictions imposed by the pandemic, this panel had to be conducted virtually and was recorded ahead of time. The panel was moderated by Anushree Bog.
Hello, GWIT community. Welcome to a panel discussion on leadership at the time of the pandemic. On our distinguished panel today are some of the highest ranking women leaders of the state government of Indiana. Dr. Christina Box, Commissioner of Indiana Department of Health. Dr. Jennifer Sullivan, Secretary of Family and Social Services Administration, and Director Terry Stigdon, Director of Department of Child Services. Most of you know me. I'm Anushree Bog, founder and chairperson of the Government Women and Technology Group, and it is my honor and privilege to moderate this esteemed panel today. So Director Stigdon, Secretary Sullivan, and Commissioner Dr. Box, welcome to the first annual Summit of Government Women in Technology. Thank you very much for serving on our panel today. Director Stigdon, I would like to go to you first. You have spoken to GWIT before, and till date, we hear great feedback from that authentic address, and we are excited to hear your thoughts today again. So your agency, the Department of Child Services, has the reputation of using technology in many innovative ways to to provide child support, child protection, adoption, and foster care throughout Indiana. How was DCS able to harness the power of technology in some additional creative ways to serve Hoosiers during the pandemic?
Yes, thank you. That's a great question. I really couldn't be prouder of our agency's response to the COVID-19 pandemic. So when the decision was made to start everyone to start going home in March of last year, which is now a year ago, we took quick action to make sure that we could continue doing our work, but do so in a safe manner to protect the health of our employees and the people that we serve as much as possible. There are about 4,700 employees at DCS, and we have more than 2,500 caseworkers. And we have a little under 20,000 children that are served in the DCS system. At that time, it was a little over 20,000. So we had to get really creative with technology, and we couldn't let a pandemic get in the way. That's just not an option. So we transitioned to working from home, which really seemed like record time. We spoke to other states, and they were floored at how quickly IoT was able to support us and getting us flipped over to Teams. Many of our agency team members had not used Teams before. So flipping us over, making sure everyone had the access that they needed, and then providing webinars and information so that everyone could very quickly learn how to use that system. That was amazing, and I really appreciate it. But as far as us being creative, we had to keep track of the supplies that we ordered in a new way. And I'm used to using a Kanban method of keeping track of supplies from healthcare, and I wanted to be able to bring that here to DCS. As we looked at ordering PPE, making sure we had the masks and the gloves available when we were able to get them. And so our CIO and his team are so wonderfully responsive to our needs. They are constantly listening to what is it that we need in the business that IT can support. And so they developed a program all within, I believe it was 8 hours, where we were able to track in all 92 county offices what PPE we had, what did we need, and when was it time to reorder? Because the last thing we wanted was anyone hoarding supplies. We wanted to have what we need when we needed it without having supplies sitting in the back of a storeroom gathering dust. So that helped us to be very responsive to the needs of our team members to make sure they were prepared. Another thing that we did was our IT team created an office tracker. Our offices never closed truly. While we may have not been open to walk-in traffic, we always had someone in our offices. But we had to split people up into cohorts to make sure that we allowed for social distancing. And even with those cohorts, we might still have family members that come in that used our facility so they could appear virtually in court. And so to keep track of how many people we could have based on the square footage in the building and the available space for people to be in, the office tracker helped us keep track of who was there. The other benefit of the office tracker was if there was an exposure to COVID, we found out someone actually had COVID and had exposed others. We then had a very quick way to do contact tracing. We had the name of the individuals in the office and their most current contact information so that we could contact them right away and assist our local departments of health with contact tracing and notifying people. I would say that that allowed us to get people informed in record time and to be able to respond to whether they needed to be quarantined for a period of time or if they needed to do other things to protect their own health and their families. I mean, we did everything we could do to keep doing our jobs and keep children safe and help support families. So I'm really proud of the IT work that was done to help us as an agency remain flexible and really committed to our mission of work.
My goodness, that is just amazing. Thank you so much, Director Stigdon. Next, I would like to go to Dr. Sullivan. Dr. Sullivan, heard so much about you. Absolute pleasure to meet you today. My first question for you is that given that the FSSA serves Hoosiers of all ages and it connects them with social services, healthcare, and their communities, How did technology help with serving your constituents during the pandemic, given that the workforce had to pivot to working 100% remotely within a very short time?
Well, I'm so excited to be with you today. What a great question. So we have had a couple of things that we needed to think about a year ago. The first was our team that delivers services and eligibility to Hoosiers all across the state. And then the second were the Hoosiers themselves who needed services. And so our agency went virtual in about 72 hours. Which was really pretty extraordinary given that we have offices in every county, 110 just eligibility offices, and we also have 6 state hospitals. Folks forget that we actually run facilities as well. So you obviously can't run a facility virtually, but how do you make sure that both local offices in the field and hospitals, and then our team here in central office have access to everything that they need so that then Hoosiers can get what they need as well, is really critical. We did this with an eye to keeping people safe. We really took a public health approach using technology as a tool for delivering services with health protection at sort of the core of what that looked like. So even though we got as many people home as possible in that first 72 hours, we maintained, just like Terry, a skeleton crew in our local offices so that we could make sure that if folks dropped off documents at the door in our drop boxes outside, that someone was there to retrieve them immediately. So there would be no delay in applications for services in place. And those types of human and IT connections really helped us. Honestly, a year later, we are better at our job. We have created essentially touchless government, and things that we thought we were doing to help people out, like requiring them to come into the office to do their interview, they don't want to. We actually, when we switched to telephone interviews for eligibility for SNAP and TANF and Medicaid and our CCDF vouchers, almost everyone prefers that. And so we still now offer coming in and doing in-person interviews if you don't want to talk on the phone, but we don't require it because we want to serve people the way that they want to be served. And our metrics, our timeliness, our eligibility standards, not only are they not worse, they're better than they were before. Another thing that we did very quickly in the first week of the pandemic public health emergency declaration was to turn on telehealth. And we didn't turn it on a little bit, we turned it on the whole way. We said, you know what? It doesn't matter how you do it, with a phone, with a video, with whatever it might be, every service that we cover in Indiana Medicaid healthcare programs can utilize telehealth. And because we now have a year of experience under our belt on what telehealth should look like as a tool for healthcare delivery, we know that we will never go back. This doesn't mean that in-person services aren't necessary. They absolutely are. The human connection of patient and physician, patient and physical therapist, those are required as part of the healthcare continuum, but they don't have to be all of it. The number of barriers that we've been able to help people overcome to access services through telehealth has been phenomenal. And I'll give you just a couple of examples. Specialty services that are hard to get to, cardiologists and kidney doctors and those specialty providers that don't really exist in rural spaces. When you use telehealth and you live 3 hours away, you can actually visit your cardiologist a little bit more often and a little easier than you could before. And you can use technology to download the recording from your pacemaker so that the cardiologist, while they're looking at you on the video, can actually look and see that, hey, those palpitations you were having, they look like they're going to be okay. Or, hey, those palpitations you were having were a big deal. I've got your recording here and we need to do something about that. Really extraordinary. The other huge area is mental health services. We switched almost completely from in-person mental health to telehealth mental health without a single percentage point of decline in the number of people that used that service during the pandemic, which meant that people were able to access this just like they did before. That's amazing. And the story that I love to tell was some feedback from a young woman who had a mental health physical appointment. And as we were starting to open up offices again, and she walked out to her car and her battery in her car was dead. And she needed to see her provider that day. She was having suicidal thoughts and she really needed to talk to somebody. She walked back in the house and she was just devastated that she wasn't going to be able to make it on time. Called the office and they were able to immediately convert her over to a telehealth visit so that she could talk to her provider, get what she needed. And that actually supported her mental health, gave her the ability to sort of clear her head and then go take care of her car, right? So this is just this renewal of how do we get to people rather than people always having to come to us. Really innovative work across the entire portfolio of our services to make sure that people get exactly what they need better than they did before.
Wow, that is just fantastic, and perhaps the most touching story about touchless government that I've ever heard. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Dr. Sullivan. Moving on to Dr. Box. So like the rest of Indiana citizens, most of our GWIT members know who you are, given your huge leadership role in fighting COVID-19 in our state, especially the series of COVID briefings. So my first question for you, Dr. Box, is how has technology played a role as the Indiana Department of Health has handled the many challenges associated with the pandemic, namely the COVID testing, the contact tracing, COVID vaccine administration, and many, many other issues?
Yeah. It's a great question, and it has been absolutely key because when you work for a governor who is incredibly data driven and makes his decisions based on data, it is absolutely imperative that you get data quickly, you get it efficiently, you get it effectively, that it's accurate data, and that you can put it into a form so that the governor and his team can absorb that and make their decisions based on that. So just a simple example is that in the past, the Department of Health has never required people to actually report on negative tests. It's always just been positive tests, right? Report the positive tests, especially for communicable diseases to us. It was critically important for us to know the percentage of the population that was being tested for COVID-19 that was positive. So that meant you had to know all the negative tests also. So we had to develop the IT and the ability system to do that. It's also important that we were able to take that data and process that data within 24 hours and place it on a dashboard. So that meant deduplicating the data and all those things that we normally would take about a week to do to get onto a dashboard, and to do that within a much quicker period of time. And in all honesty, I owe a debt of thanks to Dr. Sullivan for this, because she loaned me her chief data officer, who has been critical in this process that we have done. We onboarded over 300 different labs because so much testing was needed across the state. And then we had to work with multiple agencies like our health information systems, Regenstrief, FSSA, MPH, the Department of Health, our contractors at KSMC. And really, that's how we were able to take positive cases, match it with people that were in the hospital, determine whether they went to the ICU, determine how many days they were in the hospital, determine whether they were discharged or, God forbid, they died, to be able to match with more race and ethnicity. Those were all critically important things that we did. We had just developed a platform here in our preparedness division called EM Resource, and this was a resource that our hospitals could immediately start reporting to. And they would report not only their personal protective equipment that they had or might need, but also did they need more testing supplies. We were able to get all of our long-term care facilities, 5,000 facilities, over 5,000 across the state, and they reported the same information to us. And this was information that was critical at times when we had to actually ask our hospitals to shut down their non-emergent surgeries so that we could maintain beds and personal protective equipment and other things for people that were critically in need of that. We also had to work to make sure that we set up discussions across the state, and this data was important to get it down to the level of the county, get it down to the level of the zip code, so that as we talked with our counties, we could talk with local hospitals, our local public health, and along with that, our local elected officials, and they could make decisions based on their own data for their own communities and their own county. It was really important, as I mentioned, that we know how many people tested positive that were in certain races and certain ethnicities and certain age groups and certain male versus female, and having that data to be able to present. And then even as we looked at cases and deaths and and the numbers of people in different populations, so from the age of say 50 to 59 or 60 to 69, that was critical as our vaccine advisory group got together and looked at, this was where we saw our highest number of deaths in the state of Indiana, and it correlates with the data that we're seeing from around the nation. And that has what has directed basically our vaccine allocation and whether you are eligible for vaccines. And that's why we've used the age-based approach. When we get down to 50 in our state, we just went to 60, we will have accounted for 98% of the deaths in our state from this disease. We will have accounted for 80% of those individuals that were hospitalized, and we will have accounted for 82% of Hoosiers that have comorbidities. So we really feel like this was morally and ethically the right approach to take to vaccine eligibility and allocation across the state. It's also been really important to map not only testing but vaccine throughout the state, because that gives us the knowledge in a community, whether that's a county or a zip code, as to where we see big gaps. And that's an area that we may, number one, have issues with access to testing or vaccination. It could be a vaccine hesitancy. And then we know we need to do more work in that area to make up the difference there. And of course, our Zotec platform, which is our platform to register everyone for testing across the state and to register everyone with their vaccine. We have good insight into how many vaccine appointments are available. We have good insight into those systems that don't have areas for vaccines or to get testing done so that we can add more testing or vaccination as needed. There are reminders that go out through this. You can get your results through this. You can schedule your second appointment through it. So it's been a really critical platform and has made a major difference here in our state compared to other states. And then that concept that with contact tracing, we really needed to decentralize that. That became very difficult very quickly with the number of cases, and our local health departments just could not keep up with that and testing and everything else. So we did a centralized contact tracing with the so Microsoft Dynamics platform. And that was the ability to get all of our local health departments that were doing contact tracing on the same platform. The state sent out basically a text message telling people that their test was positive and they needed to contact us. If we didn't hear that from them, we called them within 4 hours. Also information about the fact they've been listed as a close contact. It connected them to data and information, and we reached out them by phone if we had not heard from them. We also have been now able to automate all of that so they can get on and put all their contact information, all their information about their disease, whether they're symptomatic, into the portal on their own, so they don't even have to call if they don't want. And then, you know, developing our website. We have over 250,000 now people that are subscribed to the website for the www.coronavirus.in.gov, and that's connected to our rshot.in.gov. And that is an information, a wealth of information. Not only go to a map, pick where you want to get your vaccination done, pick where you want to get your test done for COVID-19. You can get information about our frequently asked questions, which WISE, which is a research-based arm, and FSSA are helping to keep us updated every 24 hours on those frequently asked questions. So that website has been really critical as we've gone forward and reached out to the population. So many areas that we have required our IT and our data processing group to be very actively engaged.
Just stunning to hear all that. And I'm sure our Women in Technology group will love hearing, they have loved hearing what you're saying right now. From what Director Stigdon said about providing family support to families, what Dr. Sullivan said about telehealth and access to more different difficult to reach specialties, mental health, and what you said, Dr. Box, about the whole dashboard, the processing and synthesis of data and presenting it in a way that's meaningful. We are grateful to hear your perspectives on that. Thank you very much. Again, I know you summarized for us in 3 minutes each about 12 months of activity. So we are really grateful for that. So now we will move on to the second set of questions and maintain the same order in the panel. Director Stigdon, I'm sure in your role you have to be strong and confident all the time, at least almost all the time. Would you be willing to tell us a story where you faced a significant challenge and how you reacted to it and how you overcame it?
Yeah, so I can, thank you for that, Anu. I faced, just like my counterparts here, we have faced challenges. But the one that comes to mind, especially in relation to leadership, is many years ago, so not in this current job, but many years ago, I received an opportunity for promotion, and I was really excited about it. And as I went to go tell my soon-to-be predecessor about the opportunity, I learned that this person was extremely upset about it and was subsequently destroying all documents that she had related to the department that I was going to soon take over. So if that's not a challenge, I don't know what is. I mean, everything. And so at that moment, I had to think about, you know, in nursing, which is probably in other professions, there is this sect of mean girl people where nurses eat their young. And it's actually well known throughout nursing that we eat our young. And I think that's terrible. And I have all sorts of horrible examples of when I was treated as if I was less than, just because someone needed to feel better. And I honestly don't think it had anything to do with anything I said or did or what I look like. I just think that it was just kind of the culture. And I thought, that's not okay. And that is not a culture I want. And so I could have responded the way I wanted to initially, emotionally, but I stepped back and I calmed down and I went to my unit leaders, who would have been the shift coordinators, who were my peers. And I said, okay, here's the deal. We might have to start over in some areas, but that's okay because we want to be better, right? And so we're going to work together and figure out how to do things better. As a leader, we don't always have the answers, and we have to rely on the people that do. And we also have to ask the people that do the work every day to help us with that. But it would have been really easy for me to kind of, you know, cry and have my feelings hurt and go, I can't believe this, and get stuck in that. I didn't have time for that. We were serving sick children, and we were serving families that came to us for help. So I needed my team to help us get to the best, and that's what I did. I took advantage of that moment to enlist the help of the amazing nurses that I worked alongside, and we actually developed a bigger and better emergency department that I am still proud of to this day, and still keep in touch with several of those people on an almost weekly basis. Well, and plus Dr. Sullivan, of course. But I would say that was the most challenging, where I had the opportunity to rise above it and rise my team above it as well.
That's amazing. Thank you very much for sharing that, because you know, we oftentimes hear about the success stories and we don't always hear about the challenges. I know that takes authenticity and vulnerability, and thank you for sharing your experience for us to, you know, listen and learn from that. Thank you again. To Dr. Sullivan, over to you. So clearly you're a role model and inspirational leader, but who are your role models? We were wondering if you would share with us a story about one of your role models, why they're your role model, what lessons you may have learned from them, and how that might have impacted your leadership journey.
I'm so excited to answer this question. Anytime I get to share how lucky I have been. My role model also happens to be my mentor, and now has over the last 20 years become one of my dearest friends. And is a true example of a hashtag that you may hear about, and your women, the team probably knows as hashtag he for she. And the concept here is that you don't have to be a woman leader to be promoted, to promote other women. Everyone can be part of the promotion of women. And so Dr. Carrie Chisholm is my role model and my mentor and my dear friend. He was my program director when I was a resident. And so everyone looks up to their program director in general, because they are supposed to be the smartest doctor and the best role model of how to learn your craft. And certainly Carrie was and is all of those things. But in addition to that, he had some really and has some really phenomenal qualities. I may not have known them as an intern, but I sure do know them now. The first is that he was actually the longest serving program director of any specialty in the entire country. So who does the same job for that long and continually reinvents themselves to stay at the cutting edge of how to teach emergency medicine. And he had this unique quality of constantly being able to think about problems that would manifest themselves 2 years from when they actually came up, and then start to build solutions for those before they were even issues. You know, how are we going to train emergency medicine residents to learn how to use ultrasound in the emergency department when there wasn't even ultrasound in the emergency department? He really just has this incredible knack of sort of being clairvoyant into what medical education needs to look like. But in addition to that, he values and valued in me the ability to have humility in a specialty where humility is not valued. ER docs in general are pretty cowboys, and I came into a culture, I was one of 2 women in my entire class, and I came in with the qualities that define women leadership, and he didn't ask me to change them. He asked me and supported me in actually growing in my own strengths, not a predetermined set of strengths that were sort of traditionally valued in the male model and certainly in the emergency department. And that was really rare and really unique. He also did a really neat type of mentorship, in addition to being a formal mentor, that we are now sort of learning more about in the literature, and it's called sponsorship. The idea that when you are working to help someone kind of make their way in the world, that just by introducing them to other people that can help them, you are sponsoring their growth. And that doesn't take any effort at all. It's, hey, let's go to a conference and I'm going to introduce you to someone that I think is going to help you learn more about this. I mean, what an incredible set of qualities to have as a role model, to be selfless enough to invest your time and your network in someone else. And I have really embraced the idea of being a sponsor for others. I just find it so compelling to bring people together to grow and learn from each other. I'll give you my story. You asked me to tell you a story. So when I was right out of residency, I had done a 5-year residency in emergency medicine and pediatrics. I was trying to figure out what in the world was my thing as an academic faculty. And as I reflected on, you know, pediatrics is such a community-centered, family-centered specialty, but emergency medicine is where you see what people actually need. And all of the things that fall through the cracks come to us in the emergency department. So how can I blend those 2 specialties into something that was community-based, but then also focused on kind of where things fall apart and they fall through the cracks? And so I asked, I was a brand new program director at that point, working for Dr. Chisholm, and I asked him, hey, could I just kind of try something and see if the idea of teaching emergency medicine residents about patient advocacy could help make them better doctors and advocates for their patients, and maybe even prevent a little burnout. And he said, yeah, go for it. I'm going to stay out of your way. I want you to prove to me that it helps. And then I want you to show me how you can sustain it. Got out of my way, let me run. And now 15 years later, that now advocacy track is the main recruitment tool for our residency program. And it doesn't have anything to do with me. It has everything to do with the idea that I had someone who believed that even though no one else was doing anything like that, but I was challenged to build something that had metrics and drivers and funding and a science behind it so that we could really kind of replicate that across the country, and didn't do anything for me, but let me just grow and thrive in my own space, was really phenomenal and actually defined the rest of my career. It's the reason that I'm here now, doing what I'm doing, because the problems that I see in the emergency department are the problems that I solve as the Secretary of FSSA. And it's really pretty incredible. Now, role models and mentors, they don't come along very often, but I think one of the things I love to say to this group is, you don't have to be Carrie Chisholm to be that to somebody else. You have the opportunity to be that in someone's life. And I will quote Dr. Chris Box, because we talk about this together all the time. Be the person. All it takes to make someone's life meaningful and set their trajectory is that there is one person in their life that believes in them. For me, lots of people have believed in me and I've been very lucky, but Dr. Carey Chisholm believed in me every time that I asked him to. And because of that, I have, I float on that he for she moment that he's been able to provide.
Wow. I don't have words, which is not very often, but that was absolutely phenomenal. And, thank you for sharing that story. I think it'll inspire our members to understand what tremendous value mentoring can have, which, like you said, it's not always that good mentors come along, someone who believes in you, someone who's willing to be investing their time in you. And so we should take every opportunity for that. I also was noticing that all three of you are clinicians. I know two of you are physicians, and Director Stigdon is, also a clinician. And how much you believe in technology and data and analysis, and this is phenomenal. This confluence of medicine and technology is life-saving, and you're just taking it to a different level. So that is absolutely phenomenal opportunity for us to hear. Thank you again, Dr. Sullivan. My question is now, next question is for Dr. Box. Dr. Box, clearly you are phenomenally inspiring. Would you like to share with our community 3 good best practices and habits that you may always have had, or perhaps developed over the years, that has helped you reach this leadership position that you are in today?
Thanks, Anu. I think it's something you develop. I think it's something that, especially as you have children and you have a busy career and your life gets busier, you need to find those things that are going to kind of resettle you and refocus you and ground you. And for me, it's finding some time every day to have some quiet time. Personally, for me, that's my faith-based kind of quiet time. For others, it may be meditation, but for me, it's the ability to try to get up every day and get focused on the blessings that I have. Because no matter what, when my dad died, when my mom died, we had triplets that were in the hospital, not doing well, I always had blessings. I always had things that I could be thankful for. And that really helps to start my day right and to keep me focused right, so that I can go out and kind of share that joy that I have in life with other people. The other one is exercise. I'm a huge exerciser just because that's how I release my stress. The joke at my house used to be, Mom, do you need to go down on the treadmill? And it would be, why? Do you think I need to go down on the treadmill? What are you saying? But the joke at my house was, if the house was burning down, don't tell Mom. If you think she has time to finish her workout, let her get her workout done. So really, it's a stress reliever, but it's really important for my mental health. It really helps me to focus. I love to be outside and do it if I can, but sometimes I go to work, it's dark, I come home, it's dark. And especially in the middle of this pandemic, I would be sometimes the only car on I-70 coming downtown. I mean, realistically, it was dark when we got here in the middle of the winter, and it was dark when we left, and everybody was working from home, but our team really had to be here in person. So it really has lifted me up. And then I think the last thing is I always find time to make time for the people that I love the most. I have 3 of my 4 children here in town and their spouses and my 1 grandchild, and my husband and I make time every weekend. There's always big family dinners. Some of my kids even spend the night, even though they could drive home to their house within 15 or 20 minutes. And it is just that family time that's critical. But also my good friends, my good girlfriends, it is being able to get together with some of my old OBGYN colleagues and be able to have dinner and relax and just enjoy, because they get me, they understand me. And that's what really recharges me. It really gives me that joy to go out for that next day and do what I need to do. So that's really what is important to me in life. And it's, I think a lot of people have found that through the pandemic, right? You get down to the basics of what's really important in your life, and some of the rest of it, is not as important.
Well, thank you very much for that. That is, a lot of lessons there. I've really been enjoying this conversation. I wish we had a little more time, but the last set of questions, we might just have a minute for each of you. a little bird has told me that in addition to leading one of these most successful and biggest and most complex agencies, the state of Indiana, the three of you are also girlfriends, which is, wonderful for us to know. I don't know which little bird told me, but I have heard. So the last set of questions are the same for all of you. Our group, the Government Women in Technology, was created with the mission of building a professional community of supportive women. And we have a tagline that we quote often: by lifting each other, we all rise. So our members would love to hear a story about a time in your career when you felt lifted and supported by another woman. Would you like to go first, Director Stigdon?
Sure. So I have been blessed to have many women mentors, and I'm going to name a few of them very quickly. Melanie Klein, Terry Joy, but I'm going to talk about Mary Addison. Mary Addison is a nurse at Terre Haute Regional Hospital, and I met her when I was in the Emergency Nurses Association. I'm still a member, I'm just not as active. And Mary was the one that believed in me and encouraged me to put my name in the hat to be the local director for the Indianapolis chapter, and then the state director, and then even got me involved at the national level for ENA. She constantly pushed me and challenged me and asked me the tough questions to prepare me to take bigger and better leadership positions. So my hat's off to Mary for just constantly poking me and pushing me to be better.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Dr. Sullivan?
So there's a meme that went around a couple of years ago that says, behind every successful woman is a group text. And I find that to be incredibly true. And I have three of them. Well, actually, I have more than that, but I have three that I will share with you today. The first is my bridesmaids group text. I got married about 1.5 years ago, and my bridesmaids and I have been friends forever. We have known each other from all different walks of life, all the way back to high school. My college roommate is on that text. Just a phenomenal group of really interesting, phenomenal, funny, smart women who honestly wouldn't know each other. They live all across the country, except that they happened to be bridesmaids. And it just has been phenomenal for them, not only to support me, but to support each other as we've gone through multiple different things in each of our different walks of life. So that's my group text number one. My group text number two is a random assortment of female health and human services secretaries from across the country. We met accidentally 4 years ago at an HHS retreat for new secretaries, and it turned out that all 11 of us were women. And when you lock 11 brand new HHS secretaries in a room for 2 days, it turns out that they come out and they are a force to reckon with. And this group of women across the country we have pushed each other to innovate. We are in a very healthy way, very competitive with each other on how we bring services together. And in our darkest days in this pandemic, that group text has been phenomenal to help me both keep sort of up to date on what's happening and then also anticipate and solve problems together. Really, really fantastic. But then also just to pick up the phone and be able to call when a text came through that sounded a little bit off and help each other through, really tough stuff. And then third and most important is the group text with these two ladies. Maybe it's not even appropriate for this group, but I'm going to do it anyway. We call each other the shadow government, and it's a little overstated, but we do. I think the relationship that we've built and this respect that we have for each other as women leaders who carry the lives of people in our hands, that's a big burden to carry, but also what an incredible privilege. And because we have that ability to share our problems, our solutions, our failures, our insecurities, our successes with each other, I think we all maybe need more than anyone else to grow, because I have these, really incredible women that I know are there at the touch of a button at a moment's notice.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. Dr. Box?
So Jen took my last one. To be honest with you, it's these two women, because I would not make it in this job through this pandemic if I didn't have the support of these ladies here. I'll be honest with you, Terry picks up the phone and texts, I'm praying for you today. We're praying for you today. And at times when she would have no idea about how everything was going so not well, and it just lifts my spirits. I can always reach out to these women and they can understand some of the frustrations I've had. I'm a very transparent and honest person, and it's very hard for me when people twist things and say things that aren't true and really try to give other people the impression that we don't have the best interests of Hoosiers at heart. So it has been really, really uplifting to have the affirmation and the support. They understand the pressures that we're under, and they validate my feelings. They validate my thoughts, my processes. And I'll be honest with you, I think God put us here at this time. It's my full belief. Jen was actually in her position and actually encouraged the governor to actually interview me for this position. And I would have never thought that this would be a good position for me, and actually said no to begin with. Jen also gave Terry's name for her position, and it's just been a really great sisterhood and really, really critical. And I think that we have, because of the respect and the love we have for each other, been able to do some really incredible things together here in the state of Indiana.
Absolutely phenomenal is all I can say. You know, thanks to all three of you for showing us how brilliant you are, how compassionate, how authentic, but also how vulnerable you are, and also how funny you can be. So we appreciate the sisterhood and all the conversation. This brings us, I really wish we could talk for another hour. Unfortunately, there's a time restriction. The pandemic told us never let a crisis go to waste. And I think I learned from all of you today that that is so absolutely true, that you have made the services even better. So that brings us to the end of the moderated conversation. And on behalf of the Government Women in Technology Board of Directors and our entire GWIT community, I thank you all very, very much for your time today.
Thank you, Anu. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
Yes, thank you.
What a panel. That was wonderful. Next up, please welcome Meredith Ward, Director of Policy and Research at the National Association of State Information Officers, or NASIO. NASIO is the premier network and resource for state CIOs and a leading advocate for technology policy at all levels of government. NASIO represents state chief information officers and the information technology executives from the states, territories, and the District of Columbia. Meredith, take it away.
Devin, thank you so much, and thank you, Anu, for inviting me today. I've really enjoyed listening to a couple of the conversations, and it's been very uplifting and personally fulfilling for me, so I do appreciate that. Well, I could talk about just general women in tech for days. Today, I do want to tell you a little bit about some hot topics on the minds of state CIOs. So the first one, as you can imagine, is broadband. Traditionally CIOs haven't really been the lead on broadband in states. In fact, only about 25% of CIOs are. But because of the pandemic, broadband has become much more amplified. It's become a political issue in many states, broadband access. So CIOs are working on this more than they ever have in the past. So I want to share with you a couple of interesting data points from our state CIO survey that was released last fall. So 81% of CIOs said their states will now accelerate the implementation of broadband strategies in light of COVID. No surprise there. 75% of states have developed broadband strategies, while 25% have not or have not fully developed the strategies. I have a feeling that's going to change real soon in post-COVID. And a couple of reasons that CIOs stated that maybe states don't have a good strategy on broadband: lack of meaningful funding and lack of consensus on how to fund. So those are some of the things that I know that CIOs are really going to be working on this year and probably into next. So the next issue that is on the mind of state CIOs is identity and access management. The reason why this has become such an important issue, especially over the last year, is both internal identity and access management with remote working becoming a lot greater over the pandemic, and also external identity and access management, where digital services have had to be offered to state citizens online, where in many states that had not been done. And, you know, I think that eventually that will be a really good thing for states and for citizens. It was kind of, you know, as you all know, baptism by fire when, you know, COVID first hit and states really had to pivot. So on identity and access management, excuse me, I'm going to give you a couple of data points from our Deloitte NASCIO cybersecurity study, which also came out this last fall. And by the way, both of these are available on our website, or I'm happy to interact and provide links as well. NASCIO.org is our website. So only about 15 states have an enterprise-wide identity and access management solution that covers all agencies under the governor's jurisdiction. And two examples are Michigan and Pennsylvania. In Pennsylvania, it's called the Keystone Login. So it's a one-stop Amazon type of shop for the state where citizens can log in. Identity and access management is number 2 on State Chief Information Security Officer priorities, enterprise priorities. And that's up from, it was number 11 2 years previous when we did the previous survey. So in 2 years, it's jumped from, you know, 11 to number 2. So definitely something that CISOs and those in the security community are really thinking about. And so what's the top identity and access management initiative for CISOs? That's enabling multi-factor authentication. As you all know, with legacy systems in state government that don't jive too well with multi-factor, that's an issue. That's been an issue in a lot of states, and it's been, you know, barriers in implementing kind of these enterprise-wide IAM solutions. And again, identity access management, critical component to the tech modernization and digital transformation agenda, which has also, you know, been highlighted by COVID, and also, you know, a lot of governors now have talked about that as well. So again, like I said, some top barriers to adopting enterprise identity access management: complexity of integrating with legacy systems, competing or higher priority initiatives, in a decentralized environment of the states. Just as a little aside, we also found last year that state CIOs and CISOs told us that those who had a more centralized organization were able to pivot a lot easier to provide services and stand up a lot of the things they needed to during COVID if they were in a more centralized organization. So the last issue, or last hot topic that I'll be talking to you about today is supply chain. I know that everyone's familiar with the SolarWinds attack that was made public in December. And honestly, the extent of the damage isn't fully known. There are many states who were affected. And the way that the SolarWinds product, you know, worked is that you know, it's very hard for a CIO or a CISO to determine exactly who was affected, because there's so many other programs, so many other products that use SolarWinds, and it could be in all kinds of agencies. It has been made public that there were several federal agencies that were affected, several private sector companies who also used this product. So honestly, I'm not sure that we're going to know the extent of the damage for a while, but what this has done is really put a highlight on the issue of supply chain, physical and also software supply chain management. There's been several hearings in Congress. There's been a lot of legislation introduced in states to try and protect the supply chain. It's a lot easier if, let's say, a state or the federal government bans a certain company or a certain piece of hardware. It's a little bit easier to track that. But when it's something like this, that's software, it just takes a huge forensic investigation to really kind of figure that out. And, you know, interesting, is there going to be assistance from the federal government, because so many of their agencies were involved in this? Interesting to see what the outcomes are going to be. So just a little bit of information on kind of third-party cybersecurity practices from our cybersecurity study. 81% of states are only somewhat or not very confident at all in their third-party cybersecurity practices. So that's not good at all. One thing that we've made clear to our CIOs and CISOs is have rigorous testing and accountability practices in place for third parties. There's also a need to look at integrating cybersecurity in the procurement process on the front end to try and help prevent a lot of this. NASIO, we're also doing a document on cybersecurity and procurement. Hopefully that'll be coming out in April. So, be on the lookout for that. All of our publications are public and they're on our website. They're available to everybody. So Devin, that's the 3 topics that I had today. Happy to answer any questions or provide other information.
Awesome. Thank you, Meredith. Are there any questions for her before we let her go? Checking.
I see. Let's see. I think I see one. What significant tech and information sec changes do you anticipate from the new presidential administration? So this is really interesting. I will say that I'm very encouraged. The Biden administration has a federal CIO. They also have a federal CISO. Krista Russia is the federal CISO, and he's the former CISO in Michigan. I also, think that filling that cybersecurity czar position is very important. So I'm encouraged that I hear, a lot about cybersecurity. I've heard things about IT modernization. As you know, that was IT modernization. There's some money in the latest COVID relief bill. It's only for federal agencies, but at least there's been talk of it. We tell our CIOs in our new CIO workshop, IT is not sexy. So, it's not going to be something that a governor or a president is very well versed in. But as Anu said in the last session, never let a good crisis go to waste. So maybe if one of the good things that can come out of COVID that has been so damaging to our country and to our world is that some of these executive leaders have more of an emphasis on things like legacy modernization or tech modernization agenda, cybersecurity, things like that. I think that's really a positive thing. So I'm encouraged.
Awesome. Any other questions for Meredith? Seeing none. Thank you, Meredith. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. Take care, y'all.
Moving on to our second panel of the day, 3 of our 4 GWIT Board of Directors are here to discuss the past, present, and future of GWIT. Anu Bog, Elaine Kahn, and Megan Compton. Ladies, you're up. You are on mute, Anu.
Hello, can you hear me? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Devin. So we have 4 board of directors, but today on this panel, you will have 3 of us. That is because Rachel Clark had to attend the funeral of a member of the extended family. We're extremely sad to miss her and would like to ask that all of us keep her in our thoughts today. So most of you know that I started Government Women Technology. We planted a seed and was not too sure what it would grow into. Perhaps a few flowers, but beyond anyone's expectation, GWIT has blossomed into our entire garden today. And I'm so happy about that. But why did I start it? What was my why? Because it's a true and hard fact that women are underrepresented in technology in every industry, including government. Because so many people suffer from the myth that government isn't smart enough or cool enough or exciting enough. And I wanted to change that. I wanted us to have a platform, our very own platform, that we can own and utilize to maximize the impact. And I wanted to shine a light that women in government live full spectrum lives, that we run families, we run critical projects, we run agencies, we run community initiatives, we run 5Ks and marathons, we run late sometimes, we run with our hair on fire sometimes, but we never run away from any challenge. So I wanted to build a community, a safe space where we can support and lift each other and celebrate each other's successes through storytelling, listening, kindness, and kudos. With that in mind, I had reached out to a few colleagues at IoT, and we held our first meeting a day after International Women's Day in 2020. And there were 9 of us that day, all from one agency, just IoT. And we met in the Indiana Office of Technology CIO conference room. We have come a long way from there. Elaine Khan was one of the women who joined me that day and also responded in the affirmative as soon as I put out a call for the board of directors. Elaine has not only witnessed GWIT's growth from the very beginning, she has been a very critical part of it. So it's my pleasure today to ask Elaine to share some facts with you about the current state of GWIT. Elaine?
Thank you, Anya. So where are we now? We've come a long way since our first meeting with just 9 of us in a conference room. It was right as the pandemic started. Life as we know it had changed. And in spite of the pandemic, GWIT has continued to grow and flourish. Initially, our members only consisted of IoT staff, but we quickly branched out, and so our membership is now over 100 strong, with representation from over 24 agencies. And in the spirit of inclusion, we formed GWIT Allies and invited some of our male colleagues to raise awareness and advocate for change. We have also been named the state's first affinity group, which is a tremendous honor. GWIT's success has been noted by others, such as NASIO, which has been inspired by our work and have plans to create a similar group based on our model. And as you heard Lauren Peterson say earlier, our founder, Anu, is up for the prestigious Mirror Award based on her founding of this group. So GWIT has become a force to reckon with in very short time. Much like technology, we are always in a continuous state of improvement and development. Our goal is to deliver customized content that resonates with our members. Over the course of the year, we have had multiple guest speakers, several panel series, and TED Talk discussions. Some of the topics covered were work-life balance, the surprising benefits of the pandemic, imposter syndrome, diversity, equity, and inclusion, pandemic mental health, and how to speak up for yourself. We also have several committees with varying objectives, such as keeping GWIT running smoothly to providing tools and strategies for our members. It's also really important for our organization to look outward and do what we can to help make a difference for Hoosiers in all stages of their careers. And we have a committee focused on that initiative. Our current committees are mentorship, membership, communications, social, and STEM empowerment. So the takeaway from GWIT's first year is that there was a clear need for a community that we can call our own. And together we can face the many challenges for women in STEM. There are other women in technology groups, however, there was never one for state government. And GWIT has provided us with this communal space, which has been built upon trust, camaraderie, storytelling, sharing our highs and lows, as well as our strategies for success. Above all, GWIT is a place to inspire and empower women in STEM, and we have made great progress in furthering this initiative. I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to my fellow board member, Megan, who can hopefully tell us a little bit about the future of GWIT. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Elaine, and thank you, Anu. I want to talk about the future of GWIT because we look different now than we did on that first day of that meeting 1 year ago. We have been shaped by the contributions, the committees, the speakers, and the discussions. And what we've learned in that year is that mentorship and connection in technology field is not only desired, but it's necessary for personal and professional growth. Looking ahead, our mentorship and membership will be critical and is also growing. The engagement with women and the allies in the government space began with an idea, a small group that led to a large group, and we look ahead now to the next phase of expanding that community impact. The enablement and empowerment and elevation of capable women in technology has the capacity to foster a talent and knowledge and leadership pipeline. The concept and scope of the community is broadening and changing in really exciting ways. That is new space for GWIT in the year ahead. We look forward to expanding partnerships with outside organizations, learning, growing, and making those lasting connections. The takeaway for our future efforts is knowing that when you have something that is a high energy, you look around and see who else can benefit from that same energy and that idea. Look to see what need you can help satisfy or support. New topics are ahead for us this year. Those may include implicit bias, the power of productive disagreements, development topics like creating your personal brand, writing a good bio, and leadership. We've heard about those today here. The popular panel discussions will continue too, and speakers and conversations that will drive GWIT as well as we all continue to serve. In fact, that's what we do best at GWIT. The very notion of public service is to serve, and we feel that this is a service-oriented organization. So to quote Steve Jobs, I want to put a ding in the universe. And at GWIT, we are putting a ding in the tech universe in Indiana. So thank you for coming along on this story journey with Anu, Elaine, and I on the past, present, and future of GWIT. Throughout the year, we have witnessed personal and professional growth, with shy women stepping into leadership roles and directing their effort to help others rise. The impact on individuals within GWIT has been overwhelmingly positive. Our fellow board member, Rachel Clark, captured those impact stories from our GWIT community. We would like to share some of those with you now.
Hi, I'm Sherry with the Indiana Office of Technology, and GWIT gave me the chance to pursue leadership roles that I didn't realize I was capable of before.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Williams from the Indiana Office of Technology, and I just wanted to say how excited I am to see the community being built around GWIT, and I can't wait to see what else we have in store for the future.
Hi, I'm Heidi Davis, Risk and Compliance Analyst at IoT. I changed careers 2 years ago from publishing to IT, which has frequently made me feel like a fish out of water. The women in GWIT come from myriad fields, which has also reminded me that this kind of variety, this kind of diversity makes us stronger as individual contributors and also creates a stronger organization.
My name is Sharita, and I'm with the Indiana Office of Technology. I joined GWIT because I wanted to connect with other women in technology. But I found that GWIT offers so much more than just information surrounding technology. GWIT makes me feel welcome to share and grow in many ways I did not expect.
I'm Gabriela Ortiz, and I'm with the Indiana Office of Technology. Government Women in Technology really inspires me to have excellence and achievement in all my endeavors.
Hi, my name's Julie Harrod, and I work for the Fisher Laundry. One thing I really like about being in GWIT is the opportunity to connect with other women in the state of Indiana. It's very encouraging to get together and listen to each other's successes as well as our struggles.
Hi, my name is Joanna, and I work for the Bureau of Motor Vehicles. I think what I love most about GWIT is the just meeting people outside of my own agency and getting to just talk and hear their stories of how they got to where they are.
Hi, I'm Devin Penn with the Indiana Office of Technology. I just really love everything about our Government Women in Technology group. I was honored that I was named Communications Chair of the group, and I just really look forward to what's yet to come.
Hi, my name is Megan Compton. I'm with the Indiana Office of Technology Geographic Information Office. I'm a proud GWIT member and also serve on the board of directors. What I really love about GWIT is the community that we're building and the community where we share and support each other. Through the panel discussions, the inspirational stories, everyone sharing their real experiences, It helps each one of us grow.
This is Carol Batzloff with the Indiana Office of Technology. I like that the GWIT meetings are a phenomenal forum for women IT professionals from multiple state agencies to share their IT experiences, whether it be challenges faced or successes achieved.
Hi, this is Elaine Cohen. I work for the Indiana Office of Technology. I'm a proud GWIT member, and I also serve on the board of directors. So there's a lot to love about GWIT, but for me, it's all about the community. Being a woman in IT has a lot of challenges, and GWIT provides the forum that allows me to share my experiences, which is helpful to me as well as to all those who participate.
I'm Janine Rowe with the Archives and Records Administration. I joined GWIT because I wanted to be part of a wider community of women who share some of my same interests. I really enjoy how inclusive and supportive this group is of all of their members.
Hi, my name is Mary Bennett, and I love being a part of the GWIT community. My favorite thing about being in GWIT is probably the opportunity to grow and learn from other women in technology and meet people who I otherwise would not have had the opportunity to meet. Thank you.
All right. I am so excited to see what's next for our group. And before I introduce our final speaker and fearless leader, I want to thank Anu and the entire GWIT group for letting me be a part of something that is so special and powerful. And now, without further ado, Anu Bogg, founder of Indiana Government Women of Technology.
Hello again, everyone. I hope you all enjoyed the first annual GWIT Summit today. We would very much like to request you to fill out a survey. You will see the QR code on the screen in a little bit. When you see it, please scan with your phone and take a few minutes to respond. It will also be posted on the GWIT announcement. Your feedback is really important for us, so please take a few minutes to fill it out. So as you know, GWIT is 100% volunteer driven, and today's event could only be possible because of the behind the scenes hard work of many, many hours of many, many people. And I would like to thank them today for believing in GWIT and putting in the hours and their trust and belief in us to make it successful. First thanks go to my fellow board members. Elaine, Megan, and Rachel, you are exceptional, and it is such a privilege to be with you on this journey. Thank you, Devin. You were a fabulous MC today, and thank you for also creating that beautiful portal. Thank you, Stephanie Williams, captain of our ship today, for running the control center. Amanda O'Daniel, thank you for your boots on the ground today. And thank you, Gabrielle Young Ortiz, for creating such a beautiful program and also designing the GWIT logo. Thanks to all our speakers from the industry, Terry Takai, Meredith Ward, Lauren Peterson, all phenomenal leaders. We were so fortunate to have you with us today. Thank you, Lori Ramirez, for your help with the logistics with Terry Takai. Huge thanks to Lieutenant Governor for speaking to us, and to Randy Spieth for working with us. Thank you, Dr. Christina Box, Dr. Jennifer Sullivan, Director Stigdon, for the amazing, very candid conversation. Thank you, Kelly Early, Tammy Barrett, Kate Marshall, and also Erin Murphy for all your help with the phenomenal panel. On the screen now, you see the several names here. Thank you very much for the GWIT committee members and also the chairs. And I would like to name you all, but I think we will not have time. So thank you for the committees of communications and program committee chairs, Devin Penn and Amanda O'Daniel, membership for Megan Fukunaga, mentoring, Rita Rogers, STEM Empowerment, Cherie Walker Owens, and social committee co-chaired by Shatrice Mosley and Amanda O'Daniel. Thank you, Tracy Barnes, Hemant Jain, John Rogers, for sharing the precious conversations with your daughters with us today. And more importantly, thank you, Lacey Barnes, Arohi Jain, and Katie Rogers. We are absolutely delighted with your participation, and we would love to bring you back on the GWIT platform again in the future. Because, to quote one of you, who rules the world? Girls do. Yes, they do. Thank you, Emily Stace and Heidi Davis, for taking notes at many GWIT meetings. Thank you, Brent Brown and Devin Penn, for featuring GWIT in the Torch and on Marvin. And I believe that brings us to the end of our first annual GWIT Summit. Please keep up the good work. Please own the space that we have created. GWIT is nothing without you and your participation. Bring your friends next time, spread the word, and let us make GWIT an even better and take it to greater heights. Thank you all, and have a wonderful weekend.